सर सुन पा रहे हैं?
जी
बस पता कर, वही पता कर, थोड़ा टेस्टिंग कर रहे हैं।
हेलो हेलो। हाँ ठीक है, आवाज आ रही है क्लियर? हाँ परफेक्ट है।
कैसे हैं अंसारी जी? सर ठीक है? हेलो, नहीं सुन नहीं पा रहे मैं। हेलो।
यस सर।
हेलो।
जी सर।
आवाज ठीक?
हाँ परफेक्ट है सर।
हाँ हाँ ठीक है।
ठीक है।
उसके बाद नेक्स्ट आंसर वहां से आएगी।
आ जाओ भाई। बिल्कुल एंड में सुभाष जी बोलेंगे। हाँ, थैंक्स। लास्ट में टेलीमेडिसिन डिपार्टमेंट का थैंक्स देंगे। अंसारी जी आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
बाकी सबको जा रही है। रीजन क्या है?
मेरी आवाज क्लियर है?
नहीं मेट्स होता है। मैं भी सर ने अपनी आवाज बंद कर रखी।
हाँ ये
They should send a neurology call. I don't know how much we can do for. नहीं डॉक्टर का रुक जाओ, पहले बीपी कंट्रोल करते हैं। अभी तो सर्जरी तो ठीक नहीं होगा। देख लो पहले एमआरआई उसका प्लेट देख लो कितना है क्या है। नहीं दे लिया मेरी मल्टीपल मैक्स लिखा है क्या लिखा है? हाँ हाँ पहले वो देख लो। हाँ ओके।
म्हटलं या डेसिमेशन हॉटेल रिझर्वेशन, नहीं तो मतलब अदरवाइज होटल रिजर्वेशन बहुत तामझाम रहता है कि नहीं? सबका ट्रैवल अरेंज करो, गाड़ियां भेजो एयरपोर्ट लेने।
सर इसके बाद वो पेपर वाला कर दीजिए।
हाँ बस इसके बाद उसी पे लगना।
मैंने बहुत सारा किया है, थोड़ा थोड़ा। हेलो,
हाँ तो
Good afternoon, sir. Dr. Kotiwale from KL University, sir. Dr. Vivek Savaji will be joining soon. You have to unmute. You are not audible.
oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. चलो, मेरे को वहीं से बैठा दो, बता दो, मैं अपने आप कर लूँ, म्यूट कर रहे हैं।
Good afternoon, Godbole sir. Is it started?
तो बीच में लोग मेरे को से बात.
Good afternoon, Dr. Madan Godbole.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Umesh, Kapil, how are you?
म्यूट कर रखा है.
कैसे हैं?
खड़े नहीं होते हैं हमेशा, फिर डिस्टर्बेंस.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We are from Kelly. I am Dr. Sauji. With me, Dr. Kotiwale. So, looking forward to. Your voice is breaking a little bit.
Pardon?
Your voice is breaking a little bit.
Okay, I will.
Now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. थोड़ा सा डिले होता है, few seconds का.
Yeah, there is little bit of a lag.
Dr. Narendra Mehrotra, I am seeing you after maybe 40 years.
No, not really. We met in ICMR a couple of times in between.
I remember
but,
you leading the SYS agitation in All India Institute of Medical Sciences way
Yeah,
back in 78, 79.
that's right. That's right.
You are still with CDRI?
No, I retired from CDRI about 10 years back,
Okay.
but I'm involved with several activities of public health and in particular with promotion of Ayush. Been in touch with Ravi and the group, of course, for a long time.
Okay.
Currently in touch with him.
Are you are settled in Lucknow?
I've settled in Lucknow, yeah.
Chalo, good.
Involved with some social activities nationally also. Yeah, in the broad areas of holistic development, particularly in rural areas, which has been my passion for many, many years.
Yes, yes, I remember that.
Madan is also associated Godbole with us.
मदन भाई तो मदन है. He has been doing outstanding work, all iodine work, which is community based. कहाँ से जाके ये उसके sheep के, बकरी के, कुत्तों के थायराइड ग्लैंड उठा के लाता था, गाय के, भैंस के.
मेहनत करो तो सब पॉसिबल है.
सारे जितने भी जो बूचर से यूपी में, देवरिया वगैरह में, सब जगह से ये थायराइड ग्लैंड लेके आता था कुचू के लिए. A remarkable person.
Yeah.
I love him.
Good team for a long time.
Yeah. He's been outstanding.
So Madan, when are we starting? You are on mute, Madan. Godbole, you are on mute.
I am waiting for the main speaker.
Okay.
From Professor Lynette to join.
अंसारी साहब नमस्कार, सलाम वालेकुम.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम.
कैसे हो?
फाइन, थैंक यू.
और कैसा चल रहा है? सब बढ़िया?
बढ़िया है सर, सब बढ़िया है सर.
चलो, गुड.
आप बताएं.
बस सो फार सो गुड. अभी तक अपने आप को बचा के रखा हुआ है कोविड से.
Ayush is doing a lot of good response in Corona.
Yes.
Very good response. Lot of studies, even clinical trials and so on.
I agree with you.
Godbole sir, if you can just give a little bit of a background about this double fortified salt, maybe before we go on to the formal presentations, thoda sa, if there is a little bit of background, that will be helpful.
The background is very simple. We have a very successful universal salt iodization program. And as other trace metals, iron and zinc, it was thought that sodium chloride being an ionic compound will be easy to incorporate with other ions. Unlike vitamins and where you need edible oils and all that. So the double fortified salt came from our National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. And second came from University of Toronto. So there are the two sources from where this salt was developed. And they tried different kind of compounds of iron pyrophosphate, iron EDTA, sodium, iron sulfate, then encapsulated form. And this whole meeting is about distribution of that salt and seeing its impact. It was seen under the case control studies, but effectiveness studies are very few.
Ultimately,
So they will give us the details. So that is the small background.
No, but does it alter the taste, or particularly this with a mixing of the iron, does it get into little metallic taste, or
that all issues will be discussed today. That all sensory perceptions, acceptability, all those issues will be discussed today. You will listen about them in today's talk. There are two talks. One will be from
meeting में हूँ,
one will be from GAIN about the impact dissemination about the impact evaluation studies, and the second will be from Nutrition International on the acceptabilities of salt and how to popularize it and all those kind of things.
okay, so if the things are ready, I think we are just waiting for it to start.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the main speaker to join us. I think she has
No,
joined.
no, Dr. Oliver, I think I saw him. He's now come online.
Oliver?
No.
I'm waiting for Professor Lynette and Imdu Mubay.
Yes, Du is on the line. Hello, everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Lynette I was expecting Lynette to join and lead the presentation of the findings, but I think if she's delayed, I can go ahead.
Okay. So, any idea from whether the Jayapratap Singh ji has joined us? Or we can begin. Director ki if we have the permission from the director, then we can.
Dr. Dhiman is on mute, yeah.
Yes, sir, we can start, sir.
Okay, sir. So I will request Professor R.K. Dhiman, Director SGPGIMS, to welcome the guest.
Thank you, Dr. Godbole. And formally, I want to thank you. You are the chairperson of the UP and USI coalition for dissemination meet on the impact evaluation of the double fortified salt, DFS. Dr. Jayapratap Singh, who's the health minister of the government of the UP, is supposed to be here. But anyway, we continue. And I also take this opportunity to say good morning to our American and the Canadian scientists who are joining us in spite of the great inconvenience because of the time zone difference. I believe it is very early, or maybe it is 5:30 early in the morning. My special welcome to Dr. Lynette Newfield. She has yet to join. I have not seen her, who is the knowledge head, and Dr. Madhu Mobe. I can see him here, senior manager, and Dr. Suresh Lakshmi Narayan from Global Alliance, from Improved Nutrition and Nutritional International, for agreeing to be the keynote speakers. My hearty welcome and good evening to all my Indian dignitaries, colleagues, including Mrs. Radha Chauhan, IAS, Principal Secretary, Women and Child Health, Shri Alok Kumar, IAS, Principal Secretary, Health, Government of the UP, and Mrs. Inoshi Sharma, Director, FSSAI, and Dr. Alok Ranjan, Program Head, Gates Foundation. My special word of welcome to Doyen of the Public Health and Iodine Deficiency in India, Dr. Rajan Shankar, Executive Director of the Tata Trust, Professor Chandrakant Pandav, former Head Community Medicine, AIIMS, a member, National Council of India, Nutritional Challenges, Poshan Abhiyan. Professor Umesh Kapil, former Head Human Nutrition, AIMS, and Dr. Kapil Yadav, Additional Professor, AIMS, and Shri Ansari Ji, former Salt Commissioner, Government of India. Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences have been in forefront of not only planning and executing its own outreach programs in the field of the diabetes, fluorosis, H. pylori, iodine deficiency, as well as the hepatitis in the state of Uttar Pradesh, but also assisting the state in various programs of the public health importance. Iron deficiency anemia in women and children is quite prevalent in the state of UP, and impressed with the success of the iodized salt to minimize the problem of the iodine deficiency. Others' efforts are on the last 2 decades to provide for a unified solution to problems of both iron and iodine deficiencies. And this is achieved by incorporating both iodine and the salt and the iron in edible salt, what you call as the double fortified salt, DFS, in order to provide a unified solution to the problem of the iron and the iodine deficiency. Several studies have been conducted and shown efficacy of the DFS in reduction of the anemia related parameters under case control design studies. In 2016, Government of UP, on initiative of the Tata Trust, agreed to distribute DFS through public distribution system shops in India. The impact evaluation was carried out in 2019, and I am told that dissemination meet on the impact of DFS in anemia in women is planned for today. It is being conducted now. Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences is very happy to host this webinar. We are very happy to host this webinar on public health problem of anemia and its possible mitigation through DFS distribution. With this in view, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome all the stakeholders, including salt industry representatives participating in this web meet. Thank you all for the patience hearing. Thanks a lot once again. That's all.
Hello, good evening to all, and I profoundly thank Director Sanjay Gandhi PGI for welcoming our distinguished guests. What I want to do in few minutes is put in context today's meeting. Today's meeting is essentially the dissemination meeting of impact evaluation preliminary results from the state of Uttar Pradesh that will be presented by either Dr. Imdu or his senior colleague, Dr. Lynette. The second talk will be on the by Nutrition International, Mr. Suresh Lakshmi Narayan. What he is going to give us is how they made the salt popular, how they surmounted the problem of sensory perception about and discoloration, and how they spread the message of use of double fortified salt in the state of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. The strategies is going to talk about. As all of us know, universal salt iodization became very successful because it has many things going for it. First thing was, it was a problem taken by internists, it was a problem taken by endocrinologists, nuclear medicine people, pediatrics, and women and child. So all this health sector was involved in iodine deficiency. And the another helping thing was that it was followed by in parallel by the progress in technologies like use of radioisotopes, immunoassays, and neonatal screening methodologies. And lastly, it has a very simple biomarker like urinary iodine, which has a very wide range. So all these things help in the solving the problem of iodine deficiency, because a lot of people, unfortunately, in our country or many places, neither hematologists are involved nor hepatologists are involved, have taken any interest in the problem of iron deficiency anemia. We have all is public health people, nutritionists are the predominant people who are trying to have strategies to mitigate the iron deficiency anemia. So two things we need to do is, after today's presentation, we need to focus on iron strategies on iron deficiency anemia and what we need to do further. We have the case control studies with success in reduction of anemia, but the field studies or real life studies are not, they are very few in number, and the results are not exactly what we would have desired otherwise. So with this background, I will request the speakers to focus their attention, tell us how we can improvise upon whatever we have done so far, how we can improvise upon by steering clear most of about the success of universal salt iodization. We know the strategies that we have used. We are going to use some of the similar strategies as well. And I will also like panel of experts to focus also on what they want to leave for the next generation of scientists, how to pass the baton to the younger generation. All of us who has worked in iodization USI has almost are retired or are going to be retired. So it is very important that we pass on the baton to the next generation. With these few words, I will request Dr. Imdu Mubaya to start his presentation.
Thank you, Prof. Godbole. I think somebody else is sharing their screen. Maybe I can override that.
अंसारी जी, आप अपनी स्लाइड म्यूट करिए, बंद कीजिए, शेयरिंग हटाइए.
Hello, colleagues. Can you see my slides now?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, splendid. Just transition to...
Dr. Imdu, we can see you, your slides.
Okay, I'm just transitioning to presentation mode. Great, thank you. So the content that I will cover today is I'll give a background of the evaluation of the double fortified salt program in Uttar Pradesh, India, that we conducted with a consortium of partners that I would be remiss in not acknowledging at the start of the presentation, ranging from colleagues at GAIN, the UP-USI coalition, who was a local counterpart in UP and led all of the laboratory analyses, our colleagues at SGRI, MDL, DECO, and our research partners at Emory. Many of these colleagues are here on the call, as well as colleagues at TINI, whom supported the implementation, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who funded the program, as well as the independent evaluation. So the goal and research questions of the evaluation was to generate relevant and high quality information that can be used by the state government of UP and their partners for decision making that are related to actions to address iron deficiency and anemia of women and children. So the specific research question that our evaluation sought to answer was, does double fortified salt delivered through the public distribution system in Uttar Pradesh, India, improve iron status and anemia among non-pregnant women of reproductive age? So that's the specific question we sought to answer. To reiterate some of what has been said relative to the program, I think we know that there is a high prevalence of anemia in Uttar Pradesh, and consequent to this, the state selected 10 priority districts for distribution of DFS through the PDS system. The idea there was to test the potential as an approach to address this prevalence of anemia. And DFS was distributed at a subsidized price through this platform. So for the evaluation, 5 districts were chosen as intervention sites, and 5 neighboring districts were chosen as comparison sites. I think one thing to note was that there was an important delay in distributing DFS after the baseline for several programmatic reasons. So in terms of timelines of the program and the evaluation, we conducted a baseline survey between October and December of 2016. And after a 13-month gap, DFS was added to the PDS basket in all intervention districts over the period of January 2018 through March 2018. Following a period of implementation, we conducted a midline survey to see how much DFS was, how much coverage of DFS was being realized through the program, and what the reasons for uptake, high or low, was, and also to see whether there was enough coverage to justify an impact evaluation. We had initially intended for the delivery of DFS to occur for 24 months, but for several reasons, the DFS supply ceased between the period of March 2019 and May 2019. So we accelerated the endline survey and conducted it in the period of June to August 2019. So the main, the critical points to remember from the slide are that there was an interrupted supply of DFS for 12 months. We conducted a midline survey and the end line in August of last year. So just to recap on the baseline survey findings, we confirmed through this baseline a high burden of disease among women of reproductive age, iron deficiency in almost half of the women that were assessed, anemia in 36%, and iron deficiency anemia in 25% of the women of reproductive age. And among children, anemia was 61% in preschool age children. And we've confirmed that 80% of the population reported using PDS regularly, which confirmed its potential as a delivery platform. From this baseline, we therefore concluded that there was indeed a high potential for a demonstrable impact of the DFS program on iron status of women and children, giving us the confidence to proceed with the evaluation in essence. So something that is that might be important to point out or to note that is relevant to some of the questions Prof. Godbole raised around learning how to make this program work or interpreting these findings is that the evaluation measured impact, but also it involved an in-depth review of program implementation guided by a simplified DFS program impact pathway that our Emory colleagues developed in collaboration with TINI. And the pathway, in essence, this is a simplified form. What it indicates or illustrates is that high quality DFS premix combined with high grade iodized salt, along with government processes that ensure DFS reaches the public distribution system, are key to ensuring that DFS is sent monthly, that community mobilization occurs, and all of these elements of delivery happen. And if these issues are in place, then adequate quantities of quality assured DFS can be present at the fair price shops for sale to beneficiaries. The DFS package can reach the fair price shops in every intervention district, and beneficiaries are aware of DFS availability at the FPS. Assuming these things happen, then we can be confident that beneficiaries will or consumers will purchase DFS, and that DFS will be regularly used by consumers in their daily cooking for most food purposes. These issues having been achieved, we can then plausibly assume that we'll see an increase in body iron stores and consequently a reduction in anemia among beneficiaries. So this is the assumption of how the program would have worked in order for it to achieve its desired effect. And things to note here is that at the midline assessment, we wanted to confirm these issues of coverage so that we would be sure that when we went back at endline, we would see these biological changes. So just to highlight some salient points from the midline, the bottom line was that DFS was known and purchased by the majority of consumers, but there was a relatively low proportion of households that utilized it for all salt needs. So if we look at the coverage cascade for DFS, we see that 82% of respondents had ever seen or heard of DFS, and an almost equivalent proportion had ever purchased DFS. So knowing of it and procuring it was quite high. But we found that 36% used it in at least some food salt needs, and 23% were currently using it on all of their food salt needs. And this bottleneck in DFS uptake and use can be explained by some of the changes in the organoleptic changes in the characteristics of the salt that were observed, that our colleagues at Nutrition International will speak more about from what I heard. And a critical point or quote that we identified, or that we elicited from women interviewed, was that we put less salt in the food while cooking. When I start eating, I add DFS in my food. It is fine. So there were a lot of rich findings that are outlined in my colleague Shruti's paper that was just out, that give an insight on why we see this high coverage and relatively low utilization of DFS, and what could be done to counteract this challenge. But circling back to what it means for the end line, because of this challenge, and the fact that we conducted the midline to see whether the program was evaluable, whether it met the minimum criteria for us to proceed with the impact evaluation. We confirmed that two of the districts were indeed evaluable, and these were Etawah and Orea, and they were included as interventions. And their neighboring matched comparison districts of Manpuri and Karnaj were included as the comparison. They were already the matched comparison at baseline. We estimated that we would need to sample 6,200 women of reproductive age at endline, and we managed to achieve and exceed this sample size. In the interest of time, I'll move on to the endline design. So the primary objective of the endline was to estimate the impact of DFS on the prevalence of anemia and iron deficiency, as I mentioned before, of women of reproductive age who reside in rural areas of the high-performing intervention district and self-identify as users of the PDS program. So you will notice the adjustment of the objective from the original research objective, that who reside in rural areas of high-performing intervention districts. And the secondary objectives were to assess whether a dose-responsive effect exists among users of DFS in the high-performing district, and to assess the impact of DFS on the morbidity status in non-pregnant women of reproductive age. I'll touch on the primary objective and the first secondary objective. and I won't dwell on the data analysis. We can come back to it. I'll transition quickly to the results. And I'll present the results in three forms: the DFS coverage at endline, the main effects, and also the effects among DFS consumers relative to adherence. So at endline, and I include the midline coverage findings at the top here for comparison. This was the coverage cascade that we observed, consistent with the midline findings, but higher in terms of the this current use of DFS and regular use of DFS. Now, in terms of what we found relative to the biological outcomes, we found that there was no difference in anemia prevalence or mean hemoglobin concentration between intervention and comparison. So if you look at this table here, we see categories of any anemia, mild anemia, moderate anemia. And we see that when we compare the intervention and comparison districts, there's no significant difference that we realized. And if, when we look at mean hemoglobin concentration, the similar result. But we did find that DFS significantly improved iron status. So if we look at the distribution of adjusted ferritin by treatment, with blue as the control or comparison district, and the red being the intervention districts, what we see clearly is that the distribution shifted towards the right. Well, the distribution of the intervention was towards the right compared with the control. Additionally, what we see when we look at the control district and then characterize the intervention district according to no or low DFS use, partial DFS use, and full DFS use, it might be hard to see or discern this, but I'll just point it out that the control is the distribution is somewhat to the left, and as you move from nil or low DFS to partial DFS to full DFS, the distributions shift further and further to the right. These observations are illustrated in the following analysis: that among all women, there was a 17% lower risk of being iron deficient among women in intervention areas. So if we look at the proportion of low ferritin, the adjusted mean difference was 0.83, which the risk ratio was 0.83, which is what translates to this 17% lower risk, and it was statistically significant. And also the mean ferritin levels were higher. When we look at the adjusted mean difference, were higher among the intervention compared with the control district. And then, as the second distribution I showed illustrated, there is a clear dose response of DFS use on iron status. So relative to comparison districts, we see that there's no significant difference when you compare the comparison district and women in the control in the intervention district who did not use DFS or used it minimally. But then women who consumed DFS in intervention districts had lower risk when we compare the regular users and the partial users. So among regular users, there was a 23% lower risk of iron deficiency, and among partial users, a 20% lower risk, which confirms this dose responsive effect that with more DFS consumption, risk reduction is greater. So based on these findings, what we can conclude is that DFS can make an important contribution to the reduction of iron deficiency. And iron deficiency remains an important public health issue among women and children in Uttar Pradesh. But from the midline findings and what we saw pertaining to some of the bottlenecks to uptake, these effects can be realized or can be increased only if implementation challenges are addressed. And this is a fact that's true for all programs. This is not, it's not a constraint that's unique here. What is impressive that despite these challenges, and also despite the shortened period of exposure to the intervention, we saw the results that we did. but for us to achieve our goal fully, specific challenges must be understood in order to identify a solution. And this evaluation surfaces these issues, and the issues are resolvable, and they range from ensuring premix quality, the supply chain and forecasting support, most of which was accomplished in this program. If we look at the proportion of women who procured, but in this context, consumer awareness raising could have been important in order to mitigate against some of the challenges in uptake that were seen. So these three issues must be or could be addressed in order for us to see an even higher impact. So in terms of what we recommend based on what we found, we recommend that the UP government consider scaling up the DFS program through PDS in Uttar Pradesh. This would reduce the burden of iron deficiency among women by almost 25%. And we recommend that we ensure that implementation follows good practice in order for us to see even greater benefits. We strongly encourage the government of UP additionally to develop and adopt a comprehensive anemia prevention and control strategy for women and children and adolescents as well, even though they were not the focus of our evaluation. So iron deficiency is only one of the many causes of anemia in all contexts, and in particular the UP context, and particularly inflammation and also other nutrient deficiencies, which have been clearly illustrated by the etiology analysis of the state survey data. So I think we know, and we confirmed in looking at the etiology of anemia, that iron interventions could only ever be a part of the solution and not the full solution in its own right. So in this at this point, I will stop here and thank you for your attention and for the opportunity to present these findings to this esteemed group. Thank you, colleagues, and over to you, Prof. Godbole.
Thank you, Dr. Imdu, for a very lucid presentation. In your last slide, you talked about the awareness and consumer preferences. And the second talk actually by Suresh is on that, how to increase the consumer awareness about the product. So, and we'll take the questions after Dr. Suresh presentation is over. Then we'll take up, there will be a panel discussion and we'll take up the questions. So may I now request Suresh Lakshman to share the slides.
Sure, sir. I've already shared the slides. Can your team share the slides?
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
Full screen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Godbole and the SGPGI and the honorable dignitaries today present here. It's a pleasure to present on our experiences from Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat DFS program. I just wanted to, before getting into the crux of the presentation, I just wanted to mention one important point, is that today in this presentation will be I'll be narrating the experiences from both Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat program, the DFS program, which are continuing from 2018 successfully for the past 2 years. So there were ups and downs, and so this presentation would be short, but it will be more to orate the experiences than and addressing few components that were mentioned by Professor Godbole. Would be few components, but there are other components as well. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So Nutrition International is an international not-profit organization. We are headquartered at Ottawa, and we have been working with University of Toronto on developing the formulation of encapsulated fresh pure DFS for the past 25 years. And with Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, there are two programs which are actually seeing the translation of the formulation into the programmatic reach. So just to give a quick glimpse of this particular, how this entire supply chain looks like and why salt is more easier or a quick win to kind of address iron deficiency anemia. So if you look at the supply chain, majority of the states through which are implementing the social safety net program are procuring salt from majorly 3 states, Gujarat, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, and majority of the salt production is concentrated in these 3 states. So it is from a state which is not salt producing, it is much easier for them to tweak the tender document or the procurement processes and add in additional budget to change it from iodized salt to DFS. So it is as simple as that to deliver iron in addition to iodized salt. Can you go to the next slide, please? So before talking about the experience, I just want to set the context of when we talk about MP program, what does it mean about MP program? So the Madhya Pradesh program, DFS program was launched by the state government of Madhya Pradesh by the Honorable Chief Minister in June 2018. The social safety net program under which it is implemented currently is the public distribution system, and the scope of it is in 89 tribal blocks across 20 districts. And the overall reach of this particular program through the PDS program alone, through the PDS SSNP alone, is around 13.5 million NFSA beneficiaries. In addition to the current program, government has already decided to scale it up to ICDS, MDM, district hospitals, and the nutrition rehabilitation centers to use the DFS used in preparing hot cooked meal across all these programs across the entire state. So the resolution, the policy has been passed, and recently the tender document that has been floated for PDS has also been added with the quantities for procurement of these particular programs across the entire state. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so in Gujarat, again, the program it was initiated by the state government of Gujarat, the ICDS department, DWCD, the Women and Child Development Department. The program was launched by the Honorable CM, Chief Minister, in July 2018, which is almost a month's gap. Both have got launched. And the social safety net program under which this is being implemented is ICDS, and it is already at scale. It is across the entire state, across 33 districts of the state. One unique point about this particular program is, in addition to just being used, the DFS being used in preparation of hot cooked meal, they are also providing 1 kilogram of 1 kilogram of double fortified salt to the every adolescent, pregnant, and lactating women as a raw ration, in addition to the THR. So the brand name under which the state-owned brand name under which the salt is provided is Satwa, and in Madhya Pradesh it is called 1 Year Plus. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so with the framing of those, I just wanted to delve into the details of it. So here you are seeing 5 major areas, and these are the areas where NI, Nutrition International, is providing technical assistance to the state governments, both Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, and it goes without saying that the state governments are leading from the front in terms of the implementation, but our role is to provide the technical assistance required for implementation. So here, one important point about the procurement and distribution, if we observe, again, it demonstrates the commitment of the state, both the state governments and also the proactive officers who are taking up this program. It has been 2 years since 2018, and without any interruption, the supplies have been continuously, there has been continuous procurement, year on year budget allocation has been made, and procurement and distribution is also happening. And here you could see tentatively around 1 lakh metric tons, or around 99,000 metric tons, have been procured and distributed in both the states put together since 2018 till now. So that is a huge quantity. And second is also that it also demonstrates the commitment of the state and also the interest of the state in taking this as a strategy to address anemia. The second point is about the capacity building. It's very important also to orient the government officials as well as the key functionaries in the department on what this intervention is all about. So we supported the state government in conducting both state level orientations and also at the district level orientation, and then followed by a cascading training that was conducted by the government. So in this particular cascading training, the government officials from not only PDS department, but also from 4 departments, PDS, Health, the WCD department, and also the Tribal Welfare Department. So all the 4 departments were present, and they were, and this again is a joint effort or a multi-stakeholder effort. So it is better and easier to complement each other's strength and that is what was very much evident in the whole program implementation, because the Ashas and the Anganwadis and the WCD and the health department were also giving the same message as that of the PDS department and the product and also the benefits of consuming DFS. So it is a joint endorsement, and it is important that it is a multi-stakeholder approach is adopted. Again, another important point to be noted here is the orientation or the training of the fair price shop owners and the Anganwadi workers specifically in terms of the Gujarat program, but in terms of Madhya Pradesh, it is the fair price shop owners. It is a natural tendency that a person or a beneficiary or a consumer buys the salt from the fair price shop, and if there is any clarification or if they see a change in the package, the fair price shop owner is the first point of contact for the community, and he or she should be able to give the clarification about what is the benefit of this change. So we banked upon that as a strategy, and that worked very much for us, and the fair price shop owners were able to answer, pre-orienting them on the benefits of it. They were able to answer to the queries and clarifications of the community directly. So that is a first-hand information, and when there is a first-hand response given, the community and the beneficiaries are also satisfied about it. Similarly, in terms of Gujarat, the Anganwadi workers they have also been trained, so that during their VHNDs and other distribution sessions, they are also able to counsel the beneficiaries on the importance of consuming double fortified salt and DFS as a strategy. So these two were again a big success for this particular program, and that helped us hugely in terms of addressing the queries then and there instead of letting it come pile up together. The last point that is about the cooking demonstration. So at state level, when we conducted few trainings at the state level, we also had food cooked with double fortified salt. There was one dish separately cooked with double fortified salt served in the lunch for the training, so that all the officials and everybody were able to have a first-hand experience of how this would translate into when it goes into the plate. So that was also very successful and helpful in terms of being able to the government officials were able to experience it firsthand, and as to how this policy change will translate into the plate of the beneficiary. So that was also one added icing on the cake I would mention. When it comes to the quality assurance, yes, it is again not a very the entire program from 2018 to 2020, the experiences there has been ups and downs, and we realized during the course of the implementation that the premix specification, specifying premix quality is a paramount importance, and that sets a level playing field, and it also sets a minimum point for the product quality. So that again was another important point we had in consultation with the partners as well as the premix vendors. We were able to develop the formula, the specifications, and we have also submitted the representation to Food Safety and Standards Authority of India for their consideration. So this effectively, once notified, will give a level playing field, and that will also ensure the minimum threshold for the product quality. Similarly, in addition to that, we also randomly do field monitoring using spot testing kits. Wherever there is non-compliance is found during the field monitoring, the samples were picked, tested, and the feedback was given to the state government. So that the state governments were also feeling very comfortable in terms of getting that feedback from external agency, and also to understand, and also they took actions based on the feedback provided to the state government. So that again worked as a very good system. And in addition to that, we are also supporting the state governments in augmenting their existing government capacity, lab capacity, so that they can independently test, and it becomes a very sustainable system in its own self. Then moving on to the next about monitoring and evaluation. Again, one important point is that we also realize that the importance of monitoring the program implementation, and also interacting with various stakeholders at the community level to understand what is the feedback and what is the apprehensions, or is there any success stories that is emerging. So we, as an organization, we partner with the local the local NGO, and we have our field staff interacting regularly at the households and the fair price shops, the warehouse in charges, and also at the Anganwadi centers with Anganwadi workers, so that there are 2 to 3 objectives that are being satisfied or being ticked off by this kind of approach. One is also to understand what is the feedback from the community. Another is to get a first-hand experience or understand what kind of product quality or what is the product that is being distributed, and how that could be improved upon. Third is also about if there is a support is required, any kind of support is required for the district or the state level administration in terms of the supply chain management as well, and better forecasting and better supply chain management. So all these 2-3 objectives were also being fulfilled, and it also supported us to understand if the beneficiaries are also consuming what is being sold from the fair price shops. So that again was a very successful component, which I would mention, that although this could not be done across the 20 districts, it could be done only through 5 districts due to the resource constraints. But it is also important to demonstrate and to learn and to also feed it back to the system for improving the quality and coverage of the programs. So that is on the monitoring part of it. And in terms of the meetings, the staff team members also attended district level meetings, block level meetings, to also give that feedback to the government officials and also to the fair price shop owners, so that they are able to understand and they are able to act upon it. So that level of feedback is also given. Impact assessment, we will be doing an impact assessment for this particular Madhya Pradesh program in 2020-2021. So that should be available, the results should be available in the later half of 2021. The last component about the behavioral change communication, we also realized that it is important to inform the consumers on what is the change and what is the benefit of the change that the government is taking upon. Many a times the government is providing the product at the same cost. So the value addition is also important to be informed to the beneficiaries. So we had developed a BCA strategy for the government of Madhya Pradesh as well as government of Gujarat. And the BCA strategy, the behavioral change communication strategy, was done through, it was done based on a formative research conducted in Madhya Pradesh. And based on that, a mascot was developed, and all the products, including the package design to the posters, banners, and also the audiovisual TV spots, and also WhatsApp videos, and other communication materials, wall paintings, and interactive information sheets, so FAQs. So all these materials have been developed with the same mascot, so that there is uniform messaging, and there is also some recognition of the mascot and that correlation with the product. And we have also seen over the period of 2 years, the recognition of mascot is much better. So it is again important to use a mascot to inform the importance of consuming DFS. And in both in case of the Madhya Pradesh, Lali is the name of the mascot, and it is she's an adolescent girl. So that has been developed, and it is developed based on a community participation. And similarly in Gujarat, Purna is the name of the mascot, and Purna is a young woman, aspiring woman. So that has been again with the community's participation and pre-testing has been done, and that has been developed. So materials have been developed, and the state government is taking it forward. The state government is taking the BCA materials forward, especially in terms of Gujarat. I would want to mention here, during the Poshan Ma, they had advertised the audiovisual TV spot in 14 commercial channels, and that was a huge response by the state government to take this initiative forward. So there is a lot of commitment, and that is also translating into activities. And here you could see that it is all coming together, and it is definitely a multi-stakeholder approach, and key departments have to come together to address the iron deficiency anemia. Last but not the least, we also have developed audio visuals on the success stories from the field, especially in Madhya Pradesh, so that this could be amplified and also given to the government for them to use it in a different, in other districts where we don't have a direct implementation. So that with that, I think these are our major experiences. Although it might sound to be very positive, we are looking at a post 2-year scenario. There has been apprehensions in the initial period, so there has been all these strategies put together, government's commitment and multi-stakeholders coming together. This program could be made a success. So definitely this is true for any program. It is important that the stakeholders come together and are committed on a single agenda, and it is important that the challenges are addressed together as a multi-stakeholder approach. So with that, thank you so much. Can we go to the next slide? I think it's done. Yeah, thank you so much. Over to you, Professor Godbole.
Thank you, Suresh, for a very lucid and very comprehensive presentation on distribution, awareness, and how to increase. And there I see a lot of chats on subsidy and price and sustainability. But apart from that, is Rajan Shankar available, or because he has told me he was down south and there was a electricity failure. If he is not there, he has asked me to request Dr. Pandav to start the session. And so Dr. Pandav, Dr. Umesh Kapil, and Kapil Yadav. That. Over to Dr. Pandav.
Pandav or Pandav?
No, Pandav is Manalova.
It's Chandrakant Shambhaji Pandav.
If it is Panda, I become an extinct species.
I don't want to make it Oriya. It is Pandav.
Okay. Okay. Namaste, Namaskar, Namaskaram.
Namaskar.
So I'm just coordinating this session. I'm not going to ask any questions. So we have two distinguished Kapils with us, Umesh Kapil and Kapil Yadav. I would ask the senior Umesh Kapil to kindly give his views on the distribution. That's the question I need to they need to answer. What are your views, impressions, evidence with respect to distribution of double fortified salt? Umesh Kapil, over to you, sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Madan, Dr. Pandav, and other colleagues for giving this opportunity. I don't have any slides, but I'll just make my observations. The two presentations which we had were outstanding presentation. And these presentations again reinforce the scientific evidence which is available on double fortified salt, that it increases the serum ferritin level. And this is also true with the fortified rice also. Iron fortified rice also increases the serum ferritin level. Now, this particular DFS, which has been utilizing the Nutritional International formulation, has been tried and successfully done in the Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. And Madhya Pradesh, 5 tribal districts, they have been done successfully. And in Gujarat also, plus they're been including into the ICDS program. Now, there are studies which have been published in a reputed index journal on the distribution of double fortified salt in Uttar Pradesh. And a more recent study in 2020 has been published. They do talk about the success of the success story. Now, there are few issues which relates to the distribution of double fortified salt. When I talk about the distribution, I talk about the procurement as well as the distribution. Now, if you look at the cost, presently what is happening is that if we provide anything or any type of salt with 1 rupees a kg through the public distribution system, the beneficiary will buy it They are not interested whether it is double fortified, single fortified. They are more interested in the salt because of their poverty and their purchasing capacity. So if you look at the salt, I just saw the net. Tata salt costs about 25 rupees a kg, and other branded salt costs about 8 to 10 rupees a kg. I'm talking about a system in which the salt is manufactured, it comes to the wholesaler, retailer, and then comes to the beneficiary. So there at different channels, we do have the cost. In fact, if you look at the salt which is being produced at the seashore is about say 2 rupees or 3 rupees a kg. By the time it comes to the beneficiary, it is about 6 to 7 rupees a kg. The second important issue is that this particular double fortified salt requires a premix, and in this premix the iron is being macro encapsulated, and this particular technology is not available. So we have to, I might be wrong, that we have to depend upon a supplier for the premix, which needs to be undertaken for the iodized salt. Third important thing is the if we are putting up this salt, double fortified salt, what happens to the areas where we have hemoglobinopathies? There are in tribal areas, I understand that 20 to 30% of the population, they have hemoglobinopathies. And then there's the issue of toxic upper intake level of iron. If you look at the government of India has taken a lot of initiatives of fortification of food products with iron. IFA tablets are being distributed under the Anemia Mukt Bharat to all the age groups. We have fortified biscuits which are available. We have wheat flour which is available. We have fortified rice available. So we do not have much data on what is happening. Are we reaching the toxic upper intake level? This needs to be looked into by the Nutrition International. Another issue which is important is, which I have gone through the literature review, no country in the world have utilized the double fortified salt for prevention and control of anemia. And if we are doing it, then possibly India is the only country in the world which will be doing this particular intervention for prevention of anemia. I'm not sure about after how many years of giving double fortified salt, the serum ferritin level would convert into increase in hemoglobin level. In fact, the West Bengal study on this particular salt has also increased the hemoglobin level by just by 0.2 gram per deciliter. Now, this is something important. We need to look into it. Now, another issue is, which is very important, efficacy studies. Yes, we'll find it always effective. Effectiveness studies, we have difficulties. And I've yet to see a study funded by any agency which has come out with a negative results. I remember that the Tata salt, Tata double fortified salt was assessed in Bihar. And in fact, Mr. Banerjee, who got the Nobel Prize, he came out with a clear statement. There is no impact of or a minimal impact of double fortified salt. There might be different reasons which he has talked about, but this is the fact which has happened in the double fortified salt of Tata. Another issue which I have not been able to understand, that when we started this double fortified salt, the Prime Minister started the inclusion of double fortified salt of NIN into the ICDS program and at all other PDS system. Now, what happened to the NIN double fortified salt? I'm not sure about, because this data is not essentially available in the public domain. What is happening to this particular NIN double fortified salt? Last, I would like to make a comment. I'll conclude that whenever we are doing an intervention, we are doing it for functional benefits. Well, we are not doing for the improving the biochemical levels in our blood. Now, here is the important thing. If you are giving double fortified salt intervention for improving the hemoglobin or decreasing the prevalence of anemia, we must be very categorical in our approach. We should be true to our scientific evidence that yes, the double fortified salt would just increase the serum ferritin level. Thank you very, very much. I'm grateful to Dr. Madan and Dr. Panda for giving me this opportunity. Grateful to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to Dr. Chandrakant Pandav.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Umesh Kapil. As always, very, very simply communicated, scientifically sound interventions. The questions, Madan, I believe will take at the end. Now, can I request junior colleague, Dr. Kapil Yadav? Kapil Yadav, please, your observation, comments. Kapil.
Thank you so much, sir. Pranam, sir. And I'm grateful to you, Dr. Panda, for providing me this opportunity. I have 3 or 4 slides, if I can use that.
Yeah, sure.
नाराज नहीं होना भाई, बाकी सब ठीक है, हमारी तुम्हारी दोस्ती चलती रहेगी.
डॉक्टर कपिल यादव की स्लाइड करो.
So in the meantime, while the slides are being uploaded,
that's it.
So taking the liberty of presenting these slides on behalf of National Center for Excellence in Advanced Research on Anemia and Professor Shashikant and Dr. Pandav, who have been seminal in establishing this center at AIIMS New Delhi, which has a mandate of providing technical inputs to Government of India regarding Anemia Mukt Bharat program. Next slide, please. Just to put it in context, all of us are aware anemia broadly had 3 domains of causation. One is nutritional anemia, genetic hemoglobinopathies or hemoglobin disorders, and infectious disease. Roughly all these 3 contribute equally, and they do vary from geography to geography. We have to understand that anemia, iron deficiency anemia, and iron deficiency are a continuum. And when we talk about any iron fortification program, we are not looking at only anemia, but also at a large submerged group of iron deficiency. Dr. Umesh Kapil about the functional aspect. So iron deficiency also is well documented to be associated with a lot of functional and cognitive impairment. In fact, the association of iron deficiency with cognition has been documented to be even stronger than the association with iron deficiency disorders. Next slide, please. With this realization, Government of India in April 2018, Honorable Prime Minister launched Anemia Mukt Bharat program. And one of the 6 interventions of the 6x6 strategy was provision of iron fortified food in public sector programs, which included MDM and ICDS, which was already mandatory. And under this program, this was extended to food being provided through health facilities or health program also. Next slide. So this is a famous iterative loop which Dr. Pandav has very fond of using it. So research to policy to program. So what our group has been trying to replicate this model in anemia understanding also, and it was very heartening to see the newer research and evidences being presented today, especially the large effectiveness trial from Uttar Pradesh, because what we have, a lot of efficacy evidence are available which document the success of double fortified salt and improving iron indicators. But what we have been missing is the effectiveness trial and these recent trials, one from UP, and we are looking forward to some hard evidence from the NI, from MP and Gujarat, which could further buttress the effectiveness trial evidence, because as they say, there's a slip between the cup and the lip. We do have efficacy evidence available, but if it can be buttressed by good quality effectiveness trial that would strengthen the program. Next slide, please. This is the recent framework that WHO gave, and they have been using it in their guideline development framework, where they talk about evidence to decision-making framework, or the DECIDE framework. And the first and foremost is the certainty of evidence. If you do not have the certainty of evidence, the remaining 6 paradigms or criteria become redundant. So what I perceive today, we are discussing more on certainty of evidence, both from efficacy and effectiveness. And the study today presented does buttress it. And all other issues that have been discussed regarding the balance of benefit and harms, values and preferences, acceptability of intervention, resource implications, equity and feasibility, they are sort of a downstream indicators. But if we have a consensus among the scientific community on the certainty of evidence in the usability of DFS or food fortification, iron food fortification for anemia and iron deficiency, then we should proceed to next parameters. Next slide, please. The current evidence on DFS is robust as far as globally is concerned. There are around 10 to 12 trials available, and these are the 2 recent systematic reviews that have documented and collated the recent evidence available. One is by Maria G. Ramirez group from Emory University, and another one was by Ames group. So these have conclusively established that sufficient robust efficacy evidence are available, which showcase the need for having a double fortified salt for anemia and iron deficiency. But at the same time, these 2 reviews, both of them had a similar conclusion that we do need large effectiveness trials. Next slide, please. So with this, I conclude. And one of the things I was asked was to speak on distribution of DFS. So it has been a well-established knowledge, and a lot of stalwarts are there. Professor Pandav, Dr. Madan Godbole, I see Michael also there, and Dr. Umesh Kapil. It is a well-established fact the salt is a supply-side commodity. So unless until you strengthen the supply side of the double fortified salt, the other demand side component will not pick up. Other speakers before me have reiterated the need for effectiveness trials, and I think increasingly new evidence is up. So that can be further strengthened. And as part of the NCRA Anemia Mukt Bharat community, we do strongly believe that iron fortified foods do have a significant and important role to play as far as anemia and iron deficiency are concerned. The level, the coverage can be debated, but I think scientific community should come out strongly in support of food fortification as one of the intervention. It cannot be the intervention like it was the case of iodine. It has to be one of the many interventions. I'm always like to be reminded that iodine was what we call the angel's micronutrient. Behaved well, it has all the good qualities. Iron, on the other hand, is what we call a devil's micronutrient. It has so many problems with it. But at the same time, in current day and scenario, we cannot afford country having a 50%, 60% anemia levels. Some interventions are warranted. Anemia Mukt Bharat has been a good journey in that direction, and we hope that nutrition and public health nutrition community would come forward and support us in this endeavor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kapil Yadav. In fact, both the Kapils have done an extremely remarkable job in terms of simplicity, clarity, comprehensiveness, and scientifically sound interventions. Further, any questions from the audience, please?
Dr. Panda, I suggest that there can be, Laila is also there, Laila Larson, and Mike Zimmerman is also there if they want to add something to it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. And then we take up Dr. Inoshi Sharma's perspective from FASAI perspective of this, and then we open up the
Laila, over to you. First preference to you, then to my dear friend, Michael. Ladies first.
Is Laila Larson there?
No, Michael, please. Michael Zimmerman, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Professor Pandav, and it's a great pleasure and privilege to be here today to participate in this workshop. It's wonderful to see the results of the effectiveness study. I'm representing in this workshop the Iodine Global Network. I'm the chair of the Iodine Global Network, and we are, of course, very interested to see if double fortified salt can have the same success as iodized salt in India. And I'm sure with all of your expert guidance, we can achieve hopefully the same breakthroughs we've made with iodized salt with double fortified salt. So thank you very much for the invitation today, and I'm very much looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Over.
Thanks, Michael. That is always very short and sweet. You are very good in that. Yes, Madan, what do you want me to do now?
We should go ahead with Inoshi Sharma's presentations. Then we'll take if any questions are there.
Yes, Madam, Your Highness, please, your presentation, please.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Pandav, I can see that despite your confinement, you're still just as active and naughty. So thank you so much.
All because of iodized salt. Frequently iodized salt, I consume it every day.
So I've got a very short presentation, everybody, just to share what the government's role has been in terms of the regulations. And so I'll be just sharing my screen. Just a minute.
Okay. Slides. Okay.
So what I'll be doing is I'll be just giving a broad outline with regards to what our regulations are and generally what the impact has been of the DFS in the country and how we really need to work to scale it up. So the regulations and the standards have already been put in place. We've got the first notification on 2nd August 2018. And the enforcement for these standards came into being on the 1st of July 2019. So we have, specified what should be the iodine content in salt as well as the iron content. We've also provided for a +F regulation for any salt which is fortified, which is double fortified rather. So any salt manufacturer which is coming on our online portal for the registration and the licensing on the FOSCOS portal can easily get the +F fortification symbol. It is available there itself. Then in terms of the policy, we see in the government, in terms of the PDS, the public distribution system, the integrated child development scheme, as well as the midday meal scheme, we have already got directives for the use of DFS in the programs. The WCD has directives way back in 2011 and again in 2017. And the MDM had also similarly issued it in July 2011 and again in 2017. Now, what this really shows is that there is a political will to push the DFS into these programs, which we all know will benefit our children. So what we really need now is just a large-scale sensitization, both among the community and the frontline workers, as well as the citizens to accept double fortified salt. The incremental cost, as you all know, is very, very minimal. Either per person per day, it just works out to 2 to 3 paisa. If we take the ferrous sulfate, it comes to 2 to 3 rupees kg. The ferrous fumarate is cost 3 to 4 rupees. So the overall cost per person is just 2 to 3 paisa per day. Now, this just shows us the DFS programs which are available in the government programs. Now, if we see DFS has not been taken up in all the states, even in the states where it has been taken up in some of the programs and some of the districts. Only Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh fare best. Now, these become actually role model states for the rest of the country. If we can even do it in one part of the country, it is easily scalable in the rest of the country. And this is exactly what we need to push forward. The suppliers in these in the safety net programs, as you can see, we've got about 12 companies which are already providing double fortified salt. And in the open market also similarly, we've got 7 players at present. So if we have these people who are already providing double fortified salt, it is not impossible to scale this up to a large level across the country. Now, FSSAI has the Food Fortification Resource Center placed in its headquarters, which actually provides in a lot of technical assistance. This assistance is provided not only to the government, but also to the premix suppliers, to the labs, as well as to the salt manufacturers in terms of training, awareness, in terms of any kind of information which is needed to go ahead with this particular program. We have the FFRC portal, which, as you can see, provides information on double fortified salt as well as all the other staples, how the Plus F endorsement can be received, and what are the various training modules which are available. We have a lot of handbooks also, technical handbook for double fortified salt for salt manufacturers. What are the FAQs on double fortified salt, which may, sometimes emerge? What is the daily recommendation for fortified foods for people in India? As well as some of the tender documents are also uploaded, which we circulate among the state governments to use when they are calling for manufacturers of double fortified salt. So this will give, in fact, the manufacturers a very good idea of what kind of technical inputs they need to have or make sure if they have to provide this kind of salt to the government. Training capacity building, I've already mentioned, we are always working towards it. Anybody can get in touch with us if they want information regarding this. We also create a lot of awareness. We have a lot of IEC material available with us. It can easily be translated in any language. We even help in the translation, sometimes in the publishing of the posters and banners if they have to be placed in the government PTS outlets. So that's it from me. And so thank you so much.
Dr. Panda, following this, should we take Dr. Ansari's presentation so that then whole supply, all those issues are addressed?
Sir, mic muted.
Huh?
Mic muted.
So your mic, unmute your. Dr. Panda's mic is. Huh?
Dr. Madan Gondole, I can only say what an idea, sir. Go to Dr. Ansari.
Move to Ansari's presentation. Ansari's presentation. I'm liking it because it is becoming more informal. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Start kariye.
Well, good evening. Well, I have been given topic for scaling up roadmap for scaling up the DFS in India. Now, production of any fortified salt is value addition for the industry. So most of the salt manufacturers will always welcome this step. However, if we are going ahead at a large scale, we have to consider some of the points, some issues which may affect the other salt manufacturers. Like we should know what kind of salt is available, what is the quality and quantity of salt, what is the technology which has been made available to the industry, what are the fortificants which are being used and their standards, what is the price, customer acceptability, as well as impact on the livelihood of the other salt producers. Now, I have just given the breakup how the salt is produced and what kind of salt is available with us for iodization, for fortification. About 75 lakh tons of salt is being used to produce about 65 lakh tons of refined salt. The share is vacuum salt is 18%, refined and upgrade salt is 56%, crystal iodized salt, local and branded. There are some companies, big companies, they are also marketing. It is about 3%. And ordinary iodized salt, crystal and crushed is about 23%. Now the share of this among the salt producing state is 8 districts in Gujarat produce edible salt. Out of course, there are 16 districts where salt is being produced, but 8 contributes for the edible market. Their market share is about 66%. Rajasthan 2 districts, 21%. Tamil Nadu 3 districts, 12%. Other states is 1%. Now, as far as double fortified salt is concerned, it is the refined salt and upgrade salt factories who are manufacturing today. There are about 24 units in the country with the installed capacity of about 1 million ton, and their average production is about 1 lakh ton. Now this 1 lakh ton is demand driven. It is normally purchased by the government for their public health schemes. Right today, I mean, there are 4 states are there: Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Himachal Pradesh. They are procuring salt for their social welfare schemes. Maharashtra, I think nobody has mentioned, but they buy about 20,000 ton of salt every year. Now, if we compare with our successful program of universal salt addition, what are things available and what are the constraints or the challenges which we will be facing in scaling up the production of double fortified salt? Number one is whatever salt was available at that time when the program of USI was launched, it can be iodized. There was no issue as far as quality of raw salt is concerned. Whereas in double fortified salt, we need about 99% for NIN technology and 98% for encapsulated. Along with that, the magnesium content should be 0.01, sulfate should be less than 0.6, moisture content should be 1.5, and insoluble, of course, remains seen. So this kind of salt is not available in all the places. Once we think about scaling it up, we have to take together all salt producers in Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Tamil Nadu. The second issue is about the alkalinity. The salt produced in Rajasthan is alkaline in nature. It contains sodium carbonate and bicarbonates. In addition to that, magnesium bicarbonate is also added as a dehydrant. Of course, we can leave it aside because it is not part of the raw salt which is being produced. Whereas in case of double fortified salt, we need to have maintained the pH of 3.3 to 7.5. That is acidic. People are adding orthophosphoric acid, which is quite hazardous. The third issue is about the process of manufacture. Now, initially, of course, iodization also started with the batch process, but with the time, it has been switched over to the continuous process. But in case of double fortified salt, but it is dry mixing, so batch type process is being followed. It has got a capacity limitations. The cost of production is very high. Of course, 1 or 2 fellows, they are trying continuous process, so that the cost of operation and the cost of production is reduced. Then the specification of the fortifying agent. Now, as far as potassium iodide is there, standards have been approved by the food FSSI, whereas for the iron formulation, so far standards have not been approved. Now, whatever is available in the market is being used, and that people are compromising with the quality of double fortified which is being produced. So right now it is essential that the specification of iron formulation should be approved by the government. Now, next thing which has been reported by a couple of salt manufacturers during my survey in 2018 and 19, that ferrous sulfate and SHPM, which is being used for double fortification, it is hazardous. The dust which has been inhaled by the workers, they became unconscious. So people are a little hesitant in using this process. Now, second and the most important thing is cost factor, because ultimately economy of the industry depend upon at what cost is being produced and what cost they can fetch from the market. As far as iodization is concerned, it is less than 5% of the cost of salt ex factory. Whereas in case of double fortification, it is 50 to 60% of the ex factory price of salt. It works out to be right now about 2 rupees 50 paisa per kg Earlier it used to be 3 rupees, but because they have improved the system and then continuous process also has been developed and it still has become large, so the cost is reduced. It has right now is about 2.5 rupees per kg, which may further go down to 2 rupees 25 paisa or maybe even 2 rupees per kg in time to come. So that will depend upon the scale of operation. Now, iodized salt, there is no change in color, taste, iodine loss is negligible in the Indian system of cooking. Whereas in India, we are cooking, we are boiling it. And I have seen one report which says that 67 degrees centigrade, this encapsulation breaks. And once encapsulation is break, iodine and iron will come out, iodine will go out. So that has to be taken care of. We have to make sure that the fortificants which we are using is stable. Then most important thing is about the consumer preference. See, earlier a lot of efforts were made. We have to convince the people that instead of taking common salt, you take iodized salt. It has taken about 15 to 20 years. Now again, we will be going to consumers to go for replacement. Means instead of iodized salt, now you should consume double fortified salt. In addition to that, we may have to explain that some black particles are there. You don't have to bother about it. That's what is being mentioned in the labeling of the salt procured by the Gujarat. They say black particles are there. It has got no harm. But it is a violation of the food safety law, because in food safety law, it says it should be free from visible impurities. Now, black particles, if it is there, first thing violation will come. Yes, they are violating the law of food safety law. Then 26% population, which I have shown earlier, is consuming crystal salt. It is substantial population. Now we just can't ignore them. And from this 26%, it is economically weaker section. It is the upper strata of the society. All group is there. So we have to find a solution how this particular area should be addressed. The next is, if you want to scale up, what needs to be done? After all, it has already been established that double fortified salt improves iron, it improves the iron in the human body. Now, if you want to upgrade or scale up the production, we have to update our technology. The technology should suit the kind of salt which is available with us. Now, in case of some places, sulfate content is more. Now, if sulfate content is more, obviously it will become more than what is prescribed in the rule. It is impossible to remove it. Say in case of Rajasthan, the sulfate content is, even in the refined salt, is up to 2%. Now, how can we remove the sulfate from the salt? Similarly, in case of the Run of Kutch, Karagoda area, the calcium sulfate content is very high. The calcium sulfate, of course, washing it removes, but not to the extent. Sulfate content, that is also calcium sulfate. Sulfate content is going up there. So these we have to take into account. What are the quality and specification of salt available with us before formulating any technology? Now, I was going through some literature, and I came to know that Argentina is another country which is producing double fortified salt, and that too for the retail level. They are using macronized ferric pyrophosphate. I mean, this salt is not being used in India. I'm not sure what kind of salt is available. We have to study and we have to find out, and possibility of its use in India has to be explored. Now, the next thing is important is fixing standards, as I have mentioned. There should be standards for iron formulation. We should not compromise, because in case substandard material is added, then the quality of salt will be compromised. The consumers will not be confident about consuming it, and they will certainly not prefer it. Now, we have got advocate capacity for iron formulation. I was seeing a couple of questions also. There are 4 units are there which are producing iron formulation, and 2 are very active. They are mostly supplying to the DFS manufacturers. So that is important. Now, as I said earlier, the continuous salt processing capacity has to be developed. It will reduce the cost of operation, because in case the cost difference is about 50 to 60%, it is very difficult to convince the consumers when you are asking him to replace these common salt, iodized salt with the double fortified salt at a higher cost. So we have to give them some reasons why it should be done. Then most important thing is we have to improve awareness. That is most important thing. Most of the places people are just not aware. And if they find, yes, this salt is about 10 rupees, this is 15 rupees, they will always prefer to buy 10 rupees. So there has to be a campaign, because in case of iodized salt also, almost 20 years continuously we have been telling persons you use iodized salt, these are the benefits. There are so many programs where they are on TV, radio, also a lot of advertisement was there. Ministry of Health was bearing the expenses. There are so many NGOs, international NGOs, they have provided IC material, they have created programs, so many seminars were conducted to make people aware about the iodized salt. Similar exercise to be done for the DFS also. And last, that we need to have laboratory capacity to test the formulation as well as DFS. Because now Salt Commissioner Office, practically they were doing earlier this job. Now it is practically closed. For the Naam ke vaste 10 laboratories are there, but there is no person, most of the posts are lying vacant or somebody is holding additional charge. So there has to be an agency to analyze the salt, and there has to be laboratory capacity has to be developed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ansari. Excellent presentation. Everybody has been so appreciative in the chat box. Super presentation. Can I ask Venkatesh Manar, sir? Venkatesh?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Pandav, and a great pleasure to listen to all the excellent progress being made in India. As many of you know, this represents more than 20 years of efforts in India, and I can say that India is probably the most advanced country in having so much progress made in addressing iron deficiency and anemia through double fortified salt. I appreciate there are several challenges ahead, but the fact that we've made even so much progress and come up with this kind of model where we are able to offer double fortified salt at a subsidized price to the most vulnerable, and at the same time also be able to offer it through open market channels at commercially competitive prices. I think that can make a huge impact in terms of the availability and consumption and impact of double fortified salt in reducing anemia and iron deficiency in India. So I'm really hoping that this will take off at this point and expand very rapidly in India. I'm also happy to report from Toronto, we continue to work actively on the formulations. The original encapsulated formulation was developed here. We are now able to successfully include folic acid, vitamin B12, and zinc within the same encapsulated material. We've done some tests in Jaipur as well. So we have a very successful multiple fortified salt that's now available, and that is going to go through two large efficacy trials, one in Punjab and the other near Bangalore, to test the impact of the multiple fortified salt. I just wanted to update this for the audience. Thank you, Dr. Pandav, and best wishes to all of you.
Thank you, Venkatesh. As always, very important to have. You have been one of the original pioneers in this field. I know 1970, I think Dr. Kopalan called you from Chennai, Hyderabad, and that's when the first discussion took place. Unfortunately, the idea has overtaken you by leaps and bounds, but we're still supportive of the program. Yes, Umesh, please, Umesh, Dr. Umesh Kapil.
Dr. Ansari, it was an excellent presentation. I just wanted to inquire one simple question, that when you're doing the iodine estimation in a double fortified salt, which acid is being used for titration? Because I'll tell you, because
I will answer.
Just a moment. Because
I think Dr. Gopal is the right answer.
I will answer. Instead of H2SO4, orthophosphoric acid is added to dissolve the salt.
Has it been included in all the public health laboratories? Because no, that is what is most important, sir. Because public health laboratories.
Dr. Karmarkar and Rangarajan, the titration.
I remember that's I remember the entire history of double fortified salt, right? I put in a question, so RTI question against Salt Commissioner 5, They never responded. Okay.
They don't.
So I am asking the former.
Sorry, sir.
I'll respond now. We did not do it in the laboratory, sir. It was done with the spectrometer. We had a spectrometer. So for iron, we were doing with the spectrometer, not with the time. So the question of adding orthophosphoric acid is indirect.
Dr. Pandav, can we proceed? You
Yes,
sum up
please.
so that because time is short.
Well, the sum up is very simple. I think we are by far the most exciting and the best presentation I've seen on DFS so far in my life. So hearty congrats to all the speakers. What I like is about the honesty of the presentation, the sound scientific way in which they presented it, the clarity. Now, in terms of my questions, mostly they're related to economics, and I put them on the chat box. One has to consider the economic aspects of this entire exercise. So, Madan, thank you very much for this opportunity. That's all I have to say. Dr. Kodbole? Hello, sir.
Now we should hear from Principal Secretary Health, Government of UP, Alok Kumarji, and after that Radha Chauhanji, Secretary Women and Health. Sorry, Women and Child.
Dr. Kodbole, my humble suggestion to you is kindly make a good recording of this symposium because it's very vital.
I will change the recording to the word format. The recording is there with me.
Thank you very much, because what I learned from forensic medicine is records remember, people forget. So let's have the best of records.
Okay, I'm requesting Alok Kumarji, Secretary Health, please join. Or Radha Chauhanji, Secretary Women and Child. Hey. Yeah, sure. She's there.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sarika Mohan. I'm the Director ICDS of UP. I've been asked by Radha ma'am to fill in for her. So thank you. It was for allowing me to participate. It was a very interesting, a number of interesting presentations. And I must say that fortification and anemia reduction is one of the core interventions and one of the core targets under the Poshan Abhiyan as well. I just had a few things that I needed a little bit more clarity on. From what I have known so far, from the evaluation study that was conducted in Uttar Pradesh, the thing that emerges is that while there was no significant change in the hemoglobin levels in the population consuming it, there was a lower risk of iron deficiency anemia among women from the serum ferritin levels it was derived. So since there is not going to be a significant change in the prevalence of anemia, would it be right for us to pitch for scaling this intervention to the entire state? That is one question. And secondly, since in the study it came out that the consumption of DFS was only about 39%, and that basically leads us to the fact that a number of issues need to be addressed before we can think of scaling it up, because this low consumption mainly derives from factors such as the availability of double fortified salt, the cost factor as has already been discussed, the acceptability, like it was mentioned, there are black particles, it changes the color of the food, and a lot of it is the encapsulation disintegrates beyond a certain temperature. So all these factors will also need to be addressed. And so I was also wondering, what are the economies of scale that we can look at, and so basically to know how much the state governments will need to invest in order for this product to reach the masses. And two more small questions I had. What is the level of iron and iodine fortification in double fortified salt, and what percentage of the RDA does it provide of iron? So this is one query that I had. And I also wanted to know what are the methods Are there any household methods like some rapid test kits like there are to test iodine? Are there any such methods for testing iron also in double fortified salt?
Thank you, madam. Madam, thank you very much. Excellent questions as raised by you from
Thank you.
From the program point of view. Excellent questions.
Thank you.
Can I ask Alok Ranjan from BMGF to kindly say a few words? Alok Ranjan. Alok, are you there? Alok? Alok Kumar, Alok Singh, Alok Ranjan. Well, Dr. Kodbole, they didn't seem to be in the house. Can somebody ask the madam's excellent questions she has raised? Very practical, very programmatic questions. Anybody wants to answer them? Umesh Kapil, Kapil Yadav.
I'll answer.
Okay.
Ma'am, what you have asked are very pertinent questions. And honestly speaking, these are highly intelligent queries which have been raised by our administrator. You have asked one thing, should we continue with it or should we not continue with it? As a public health specialist, I would say we must continue it, because what is happening is there is a benefit which is being provided to the poorest of the poor. All government system should take care of the poorest of the poor, and by this particular intervention we are providing them double fortified salt with 1 rupees a kg. We are at least benefiting them. Rest of it is basically scientific queries which we scientists have a right to contest whether it's impact or not. It is improving the iron status of these women, and we need long-term studies to know that how much it will lead to reduction in anemia. That's number one. Number two, you raised about the issue of cost. Ma'am, till the time we are getting the help and philanthropic organizations are helping us out, we must accept it. There are many other programs which we have for the poorest of the poor. We should try to accept them till we don't have to pay anything from our pocket. That's my position on that. Third thing, do we have any test to assess the iodine in the iodized salt? Yes, ma'am, double fortified salt particularly. Yes, we do have a field testing kit, which can be a drop can be used if a standard starch solution, if a drop can be put into this double fortified salt, the iodine would react with starch and give us the blue color. So I hope I have been able to answer all the three questions. And again, I repeat, as a public health specialist, we have to ensure that the poorest of the poor should be taken care of. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr.
Any more questions, madam? Any clarifications, madam?
No,
Sir,
thank you so much. Thank you,
Dr. Pandav.
Mr. Kapil.
Yes, please.
Sir, Suresh here. Ma'am, can I also just add to Dr. Umesh Kapil sir on few questions based on our experiences from MP and Gujarat? I just wanted to give some ground glimpses as well, so that you're also better informed. So, so on the cost component, the cost has been significantly reduced, ma'am, and we have we in the sense the state governments have been able to procure it around 7 to 8 rupees per kilo. So that's where currently is. And there is one factor to it. The factor is that the proximity of the state, the procuring state to the salt producing state is also one factor. But definitely Gujarat they themselves are producing, and also the Madhya Pradesh is also very nearer. So that one factor is definitely there. But the second point is the incremental cost from the iodized salt to the DFS are going down as per based on the scale. So that is answer to probably one of your questions and humble submission. Second point is also about the ability to test on the spot testing kits. We are currently using spot testing kits, ma'am, and for field monitoring. it can, with a drop of the reagent, it can talk about, it can say the iron as well as the iodine presence and absence, similar to what we use in iodine. So definitely that is being used as a field level monitoring toolkit from our team. And if there is any non-compliances, like I mentioned in the presentation, then a lab test is it is taken for a lab test. That is point number 2. And regarding the other challenges, regarding the encapsulation being broken and other challenges, so one is that encapsulation is generally it is destined to break, but at a very high temperature. So any 60-70 degrees is not a general storage or a handling temperature. It is only at the highest cooking temperature that encapsulation will break, and it is destined to break, and that's how iron will be delivered. It is temporarily to protect the iron from interacting with moisture or with other components, so that discoloration is prevented. And for this, the point that you rightly mentioned is also that this was one bottleneck that we were facing, and we have also given a specification, especially an encapsulated ferrous fumarate premix specification, technical specification representation to FSSAI for them to notify, so that this problem of the discoloration or the breakage and all the other components are being taken care of, so that, like the product, the premix is also regulated, so that there is minimum standard and minimum acceptable premix that is being used, and the cost competition happens above the level playing field, wherein the quality is generally not compromised. That is also one that came up from the experience of implementing in both Madhya Pradesh as well as in Gujarat. So these are few questions I just wanted to add to Dr. Umesh Kapil sir, and just that one more important point is that both the states, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, are continuously implementing it for more than 2 years now. So the experiences could also be one-on-one, could also be checked or probably verified with the state governments also. So that is also probably could give more this thing, and they are also planning to scale up the intervention. They've already scaled up to the entire state. So from a public health perspective, and last point is also that both the state governments have invested their budgets. As a non-profit, we have not provided any subsidy or any support, finance support to them. We are only providing technical assistance to them. So it is the government's own program. They have procured it, they are implementing it, and at the incremental cost, they are bearing it. So I think it is both the states are successfully doing it, and I'm sure UP could also do it, because UP is also the front runner already who had started it first. So definitely it will be important to scale up and the intervention.
Thank you, Umesh, and thank you, Suresh, for giving valuable inputs. Do we now have the Honorable Health Minister?
Madan, can I say a line, please?
Sure, sure. Please go ahead.
First of all, Madam, let me get on you. Madam, more deep appreciation for excellent questions that you asked from the programmatic point of view. Deep appreciation. Very smart.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
The second point I want to ask is the message that is coming from the House is, yes, go ahead with DFS, but there is a caveat, very important caveat. It should address the needs of those who require the most. That is the question of equity that is being addressed. Those who are the poorest are the ones who need it the most, and every effort should be made to address this question at all costs. And number 3, Madam, for historical records, Dr. Korbul and I have just completed 40 years of work in UP, Bihar, and MP. 40 years. We've been working in these states since 1980, wasn't 1980. I think you were not born that time also. We started a journey in UP in 1980, January 1980. So very proud to be associated with these states. देश के लिए हर चीज के लिए उत्तर प्रदेश प्रश्न नहीं, लेकिन उत्तर प्रदेश रहता है, तो आपकी तरफ बड़ी उम्मीद से देखते हैं. इस कार्यक्रम को हमें बहुत जबरदस्त सपोर्ट करना चाहिए, लेकिन it should reach the last mile, the poorest of the poorest.
बिल्कुल.
Uttam Pradesh. Ours is Uttam Pradesh.
Thank you, madam. Again, once again, deep, very smart questions. I must say, I deeply appreciate it. I'm also health economist. I'm also health economist, so my economist questions stand in the cold freeze for the time being, Suresh, but we need to address them nonetheless. Thank you very much, Madan. Thank you for the opportunity. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Do we have health minister online? Just yes.
Other before the health minister comes, I said this was one of the best seminars on DFS I had in my lifetime. Best seminar, very well organized, and we got star words,
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for kind words from everybody.
Dr. Pandav, can I just add one thing to Dr. Kapilan? Suresh just said.
Yes, please.
That is
Two more, not only one. You got 2 minutes.
Okay. No, just in response to the very interesting question about whether it is sufficient just to proceed on the program just based on improvement in iron status. And I would say that based on my own rudimentary knowledge, that the improvement of iron status is the first step in getting to a shift in hemoglobin. So if the program were to continue over a year or more, we will definitely start seeing shifts in hemoglobin as well. But what we saw was the early impact in just iron, in reducing iron deficiency alone.
Venkatesh, the direction of the benefit is there. It will take some time for things to get organized. So we are moving in the right direction in every aspect.
Can I quickly add to Prof.
Yes,
Mana's
please.
point? So I think it's an important question to ask in terms of interpreting the findings of the evaluation. But I think there are two crucial elements to the question that we might want to unpack. First, what it is that that causes these functional deficits of disease, disability, and death in humans, whether it's iron deficiency per se, iron deficiency anemia, or anemia of any cause. And the answer there is that it's all of the above, really. So each of them are important to address in their own right, and there are changes in iron in iron deficiency will precede any changes in anemia. So it is plausible that if the program were to continue, we would see incremental changes in hemoglobin status as well. But then the second question that's implicit there is that how do we judge the success of a program? So I think if we set goals and evaluate programs on the basis of the biological processes that are meaningful in terms of functional outcomes, but that are clear and measurable and also responsive to the intervention components, then we might find that our interventions are more successful than we've documented in the past. So I think it's important to evaluate iron interventions based on changes in iron status, in addition to anemia, of course, but to understand that there are other things that might cause anemia that might make it respond slower to more iron or better iron literature. So I think that might provide some important context in seeing that these impacts are meaningful from a functional standpoint, but it also makes sense that we saw the impacts that we did, and that it might be plausible that we will see more were the program to continue. So I think that's something to take into account when we consider that important question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that excellent intervention. Madan, has the minister come?
No, but Alok sir, Alok Ranjan is there from Gates Foundation.
Alok, please, look, where are you, Alok? यार कहाँ फंस गए थे तुम? Traffic jam, you can't give traffic jam as an excuse now.
There is a network issue over here. I think in between I got disconnected. Thank you, sir, for giving the opportunity to talk over here. I just have one and two slides which I would run very quickly. I know the time is very less, so I won't take much time on that. Let me know, Dr. Madan sir, if when the slide is visible on the slides.
Yeah, please.
On the
Please
slide.
go ahead. Visible.
Okay. So for us, I very proudly look at the nutrition work in India, and from the perspective of the DFS work in India, with these two slides as the fact that at Foundation, whenever we have a discussion on India and on nutrition, I think from Bill's side that always comes up very high in the priority. And when we look at the under Poshan Abhiyan, under Anemia Mukt Bharat, as Kapil Yadav mentioned, and as Dr. Ansari has been talking about all the different aspects, it's great to see the whole focus coming on nutrition over last few years in a big way. And fortification is a key component when we look at the thing. Just this is my key slide. I would not present more than this. When we are looking at the large-scale food fortification, because Dr. Godbole asked me to talk from the global perspective to what is from the national perspective. We are in our global strategy refresh at this point in terms of looking at how can we support fortification across the world in a better way going ahead. And when we look at that, it comes to this clock model, which engages a multiple stakeholder engagement, which Dr. Pandav always has been advocating and championing about. It looks at the whole capacity building and the technical work around these components, which our AIMS Institute and various development partners have been playing a key role in that. Looking at the market-driven fortification, which has been key of the whole USI success story in the past. And when we look at the whole mandatory, so in that aspect, when it goes through that whole phase, how much there would be focus on the QA, QC, the quality assurance and the quality compliant perspective. And at the global level, it's very interesting. When in the last quarter, you talk about the repositioning of the government as an enabler and not an enforcer, I think India has been a champion of that whole work in the fortification arena, and that's what is being learned at the global level from the way the fortification is being driven through the FSSA at this point of time. So looking at all this, I think from our perspective, when we look at the various work of DFS, whether it's in the new technology, new product, more forgiving premix development, or using of the better QA, QC products, I think going ahead for DFS work in India, of course, the better premix, more forgiving premix, looking at the quality issues of the salt that Dr. Ansari talked about. But at the same point of time, how can we look at the quality assurance and quality compliance? Can we have digital aspect, looking at the digital Indias and leveraging on those components from the level of premix industry to the last mile provision of the DFS? How can we ensure all those components end to end would also be quite critical. There are global MIS, digital MIS platforms that are available, which are used by different partners. Different countries have started using it. Can we use it across for our fortification program end to end? And unlike any other country in the world, the kind of reach that our social safety net program has, that Suresh very eloquently shared about the finding from the Gujarat and MP, I do feel all of those provide huge opportunities, and we are very happy and proud to be working with the various partners at the national level and at the state. And I would end and finish looking at the fact that nutrition is an investment that we must all make to give every woman and child an opportunity to survive and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Alok, for that intervention. I think your last slide is an important message for all of us. That's our New Year resolution, which we need to address seriously. I think there's a concern of malnutrition. Both we are concerned in India, both for undernutrition as well as overnutrition. So that should be our next challenge to be addressed in a very systematic, comprehensive way. So thank you, Alok. Madan, can I conclude from my side?
Yeah, you conclude, because I don't think Alok is available. Secretary of Health, he got held up somewhere. So we conclude, and then what I will do is I will take the recording and make a concise report of the today's meeting.
Number one, Madan, once again I say excellent meeting.
And circulate it to everybody.
Yeah, number one, the best meeting I've attended so far on DFS. Number one. Number two, the Madan and Ujjwala have got this. They developed the kits for the iron testing, the iron salt. So thank you, husband wife team, for taking this forward. Number three, the answer to the DFS is big yes, ma'am. Very big yes. Good, let's go ahead. Provided it addresses the question of those who are vulnerable, those who need the most. I will go to the exercise. It should be given free of charge to them. Free. It's an important responsibility for us to make sure that those the equity is addressed very adequately. I will not go to the extent of saying that it should be given free to them. Number four, there are some questions which Dr. Kapil has raised. They need to be answered, not kept in cold storage. I raised some economic questions. They also need to be addressed. But in terms of the programmatic, go ahead with the DFS. Finally, I would say that let's also celebrate the success of USI. Venkatesh Bala, sir, today 93% of India's population is consuming salt with some ID. 93%. That's 1.38 billion. That's 1.25 billion. And that's the population of 193 countries. So let's celebrate that. We still have the last mile to reach. And finally, Madam, a humble request to you. Please withdraw the cases against the whereas this iodized salt manufacturer of Gujarat, that distribution level, production levels need to be revised, and it should be revised as early as possible. Inoshi Madam, humble request to you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Pandav, we have taken that into consideration. We are working on it. We have got their representation, and we will soon be hopefully on a positive side coming out with a better upper limit. Let's see.
Yes, madam, it's very vital. Otherwise, I'll have to go on the roads in order to reach Morcha from Gandhidham to FSR. I'll reach that Morcha during winter time.
I understand I have permission from all the speakers to reproduce the material which they presented today in a report format.
Please.
Finally, Mother, what I learned from forensic medicine is records remember, people forget. So we're looking for the excellent record that you always done in the past. Excellent record. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody from my side for such excellent.
I will call my colleague Subhash Yadav to say a word of thanks. Just.
Subhash, have you got the pakoras ready with the DFS salt?
Good evening. From Professor.
यार तुम्हारा mask निकाल दो ना, please remove the mask.
Mask you can remove.
Okay.
Thanks, Subhash. Thank you very much.
From Professor M. Godbole and his organizing team, first I'd like to thank Health Minister in his absence, who was not able to come because of some busy schedule. I'm also thankful to Dr. Imidu from GAIN and other overseas speaker and participant for sharing their valuable thought despite of difficulties in the time zone. We are especially grateful to Mrs. Radha Chauhan, Principal Secretary and Additional Chief Secretary, Women and Child Welfare Department, Government of Uttar Pradesh, and Mr. Alok Kumar, Secretary Health, Government of Uttar Pradesh, for participating in this meeting and giving their valuable input and suggestion. We are also thankful to our panelists, Dr. Suresh Lakshmi Narayan, Colonel Rajan Shankar, Professor C.S. Pandav, Professor Umesh Kapil, Dr. Kapil Yadav, Dr. Inoshi Sharma, Mr. M.A. Ansari, and Mr. Alok Ranjan for participating and sharing their thought. And I also thank all the participants from the different part of our country who were participating through the web. We are also thankful to our director, Professor R.K. Dhiman, for his encouraging this outreach program. And not the least, we are thankful to all stakeholders like GAIN, GATE Foundation, Nutritional International, and Salt India for their continuous support. And lastly, and many thanks to the staff of Department of Telemedicine for providing this logistic support to make this meeting a successful event. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Godbole. Two things from my side. First is Dr. Vinod Paul is very keen. Dr. Vinod Paul, who is the member of the Niti Aayog for Health and Nutrition, is very keen to get a feedback on this very important subject. And unfortunately, is tied up in Chandigarh for personal work, but he is very keen to get the proceedings of the meeting and what the conclusions was. And finally, on behalf of all the participants, Madan and Ujjwala, I would like to thank both of you for conducting this excellent session. Thank you very much.
Thank you to one and all. Thank you. I will send the report to everybody.
Namaste, namaskar, namaskaram.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, colleagues.
So we close the meeting.
Thank you.
मैं छोड़ पहले सबको निकल जाने दो बाद में I should be the end ना
मदन
तबीयत ठीक ठाक
हाँ बिल्कुल बढ़िया है all is well
okay good
thank you